3 weeks ago, almost nobody outside Washington knew who Natalie Harp was. I did. I made a 9-minute video about her on July 5th. It got 800 views. Then Jon Ossoff said her name at a rally.
He wants to build his ballroom and travel with Natalie on their apparently defenseless flying palace gifted by the Emir of Qatar.
And suddenly, CNN, Time, The Washington Post, Forbes, and half of Washington were asking the same exact question I had already made a video answering. So I have a slightly embarrassing problem. I already made this video. But we found out some really bizarre things about Natalie Harp since then. She follows Donald Trump everywhere, every meeting, every golf course, every trip, carrying one piece of technology almost nobody in Washington still uses, and once you understand why she carried it, you'll understand why Trump trusted her more than almost anyone around him. Because according to a new book by Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan, this isn't occasional access, it's constant proximity, a 34-year-old aide who appears almost silently in scene after scene inside the most powerful spaces in the White House, sitting off to the side, laptop open, watching everything. And when Trump wants something, information, numbers, a headline, he doesn't always turn to his cabinet, he turns to her. But that's not where the story ends, because the story I made in July is now badly out of date. Since I published it, we've learned about the human binkie, how she jumped in a car's trunk, and her alleged dicey relationship with Melania. So you'll see what we knew before anyone cared, and then what changed since everyone did. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to early 2021. Trump has just lost the election. He retreats to Mar-a-Lago, and according to Regime Change, the place is almost empty. Barely any furniture, no real schedule, no sense of what comes next. His days are organized around two things: golf in the morning, dinner on the patio at night, where club members would stand and applaud when he walked in. That was it. That was the former president of the United States, the most powerful office on earth, gone. And now this. Natalie Harp starts showing up on the golf course every day without fail, and here's where we get to that device. Natalie was carrying a portable printer and a battery pack. She'd print out positive news stories and hand them to him mid-round. Every single day, Harp would walk alongside Trump, pulling out freshly printed copies of positive news stories, glowing social media comments, things people were saying about him online. She'd read them to him aloud, then hand him the printout. Think about what that is for a second. In a world where everyone gets their information from a screen, she figured out that this man wanted paper, warm off the printer, something he could hold. White House staff would eventually give her a nickname for it. They called her the human printer. So this was the whole story in July, but it's not the whole story anymore. The updates on this just made it even weirder. 3 weeks ago, Trump had a clandestine plane switching operation mid-route over a security threat. Basically no one knew, certainly not the media, and even fewer were allowed to come, like not even top cabinet officials. But Natalie Harp was. When Maggie Haberman, the reporter who first surfaced a lot of this material, was asked why on live television, she used a cute yet troubling name for her.
Natalie Harp, because she is sort of his binkie, for lack of a better way of putting it.
She called Harp the president's human binkie. That term is concerning on multiple levels. If the leader of the free world needs a binkie, we're all doomed. We've gone way past speculation. We're now in verified White House reporters openly describing an assistant as a security blanket with a laptop. If anyone has earned the right to speak carefully here, it's Michael Wolff. He spent 2 books worth of material inside Trump's orbit, and this week he gave an entire podcast episode to one subject, Natalie Harp. Wolff says Harp was, for a while, simply the most important person in Trump's political life. Then, in his words, she started gradually becoming the most important person in his personal life, too. Susie Wiles, Trump's chief of staff, one of the most experienced political operators in the country, reportedly looked around at all of this and thought to herself, "Where am I?" Sources inside the Trump administration told Vanity Fair they were experiencing what they described as bewilderment and concern. They tried more than once to create a distance between Trump and Harp. It didn't work. And Trump made his position clear. He told the staff directly, "All of you will go off and make money. she'll never leave me. And if this isn't absurd enough for you yet, hold on to your hats. Wolff just came out with a new claim that Harp was one of the people who pushed Trump to demolish the East Wing of the White House to make room for his ballroom. The First Lady, according to separate reporting, privately opposed the demolition and told associates it wasn't her project. And by the way, the East Wing is where the First Lady typically works. So basically, Natalie Harp is telling Trump to demolish Melania's office. And then Wolff says that Melania was avoiding Natalie. Wolff writes that Melania's public appearances were carefully negotiated and that she simply wouldn't show up if Harp was around. One Trump aide describing the dynamic to Wolff didn't call it a romance, he called it something else, a Christian devotional relationship. Wolff is explicit that this isn't a story about an affair. Nobody involved is alleging that. It's stranger than that. It's devotion, one-directional, dressed in the language of faith, sitting 15 feet from the Resolute desk. In July, I also talked about the letters, reported ones, lines like, "You're the Alpha and the Omega," and "What would I be without you?" Harp began leaving handwritten notes for Trump in his personal spaces, places only he would go, places staff didn't follow. Now, multiple books and sources have reported on these letters by now. Michael Wolff wrote about them first in 2025, describing notes that said things like, "You're the Alpha and the Omega," and "What would I be without you?" But Regime Change surfaces a specific one that reportedly read, "You are all that matters to me." And those are just the notes that we knew about before. This week, The Times published a new one. In it, Harp apologizes to Trump for what she calls being an embarrassment while walking a golf course in Scotland. A reference, it turns out, to a video The Times obtained of her sprinting to keep pace with his golf cart across the fairway. She writes that she's been forgetting to eat, forgetting to sleep, catching a couple hours at a time. She signs it, "With all my heart, Natalie." That's not a staffer's sign-off. That's not how you close a memo. And there's more. CNN reported this week that back in 2023, when Trump's motorcade didn't have a free seat for her on the way to a courthouse appearance, Harp didn't wait for the next car. She got in the trunk. Yeah, the trunk. Now, fast forward to earlier this week when Ossoff invoked Natalie's name. Believe it or not, it's not a case of the senator being petty. Ossoff's actual argument wasn't about Harp specifically. It was about a president who, he claims, surrounds himself with people who tell him what he wants to hear instead of what he needs to hear. Harp was his example. He's since called that dynamic Trump's security blanket, aides whose function isn't policy, it's reassurance. And that kind of sounds like a nicer way of saying binkie. That's the real story, not the relationship, the information supply chain. Because remember what the July video established, Trump's second-term picture of reality, according to reporting, ran through two channels, Fox News and whatever Natalie Harp printed out and handed him. A senator just spent a national news cycle pointing at exactly that pipeline. And this is where it gets interesting for me personally, because when I posted the original video on July 5th, none of this had happened yet. No Ossoff, no clandestine flights, no human binkie, no trunk story, just a printer, some letters, and French pronunciation of a first name that nobody explained. Oh, if you missed that detail, Trump calls Natalie, Natlalie. I'm not kidding. When Trump calls for her, he doesn't say Natalie, he says Natlalie, French pronunciation. It comes up again and again throughout the book. In the tariff meeting, when Musk's post hit dozens of times across dozens of scenes, Natlalie, get me my phone. Natlalie, do your computer thing. Give me the real numbers. Nobody else calls her this. No explanation is ever given for why he does. And somehow that unexplained detail, that tiny linguistic choice he makes every single time, might be the strangest thing in his entire story. That previous video got 50% retention, which is actually strong, but YouTube, it only served it up to a small group of people. But when a senator said her name at a rally, and by the end of the week, Time, The Washington Post, CNN, Forbes, and The New Republic all ran the same headline in different words, "Who is Natalie Harp?" Now, she's everywhere. I'd already answered that question 6 weeks earlier. Her estranged brother has cropped up and has given 2 interviews, the Daily Beast in July, CNN this week, describing what he calls an obsession with presidents going back to when she was a teenager. He says she's written letters like this before to other presidents, long before Trump. Her dream, he said, finally came true, but maybe the other presidents didn't reply to her. Whatever you make of that, it's not really the interesting question. The interesting question is the one from the original video, and it's more urgent now than it was in July. How much control does one unelected, unconfirmed aide have over what the most powerful man in the world actually sees, hears, and believes before he makes a decision?
Maybe the only person who even talks to Trump about some of these things.
3 weeks ago, that question didn't really go very far. This week, it's the thing half of Washington is arguing about. If you want the full original breakdown, letters, printer, the nickname, all of it, it's linked below. I made it before anyone was asking.
If you like this video, please like and subscribe. It'll help me keep bringing you more like this. Support my channel and keep watching videos. Check out the video I've got profiled right here.